Yeah,
Hey
so
everyone, we are live, and we have another member. We already had P already joined us as a member, and now Mike Marco is also a member. Look, thank you, Marco. Wow, thank you guys. I didn't expect. I didn't even advertise it, and you guys became members. This is very nice. Thank you. P and Marco are our first members. All right. So what are we talking about today? And hey, we're here with our very own Zionist Israeli Jew, Yuval. Is that accurate description of you?
yeah, I guess you should have added atheist as well, just so they'll
Oh
know.
yes, the most important. I sorry, the most important one. The rest of them don't really matter. I'm sorry. So Zionist, atheist, Israeli
Jew,
Jew.
that's right. Currently
Great.
residing outside of Israel, but still
Yeah.
Israeli in many ways.
Oh wait, Darko is also a member. I completely ignored him. Sorry, Darko. Hey, sorry, Darko. Darko is also a member. And Shobham
So,
are yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so someone is asking, is Seth is one of the good ones? We're gonna check in a minute.
Yes, we don't know. So the
We don't.
title of this article is Israel is ridiculous, antiquated, and based on lies about other people's land. Seth Rogen says, but he's afraid to tell other Jews. Well, somebody shouldn't have published this article. Now everybody knows.
Yeah,
But yeah, so we should go. Oh, by the way, we have people on Twitch also commenting. That reminds
yeah.
me, if you're watching this on YouTube, follow us on Twitch. Link in the description.
Actually, we
Uh,
have we have Suha Barakat on the as a moderator. I don't know if she's Palestinian, but if she is, maybe you want to ask her what she thinks as well. I don't know.
okay, yeah, but let's get through the article first before
Yeah,
we. Yeah.
yeah, sure.
So has a mother. All right, so let's read this article and then quickly decide what we think. Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, this is great, guys. Like we have a Zionist atheist with us, which makes this video a lot more interesting, right? So to get some authentic,
Yeah.
Israeli commentary on this, right? Okay, cool. Let's continue. Let's read. Writer comedian Seth Rogen was on the Mark Marone podcast yesterday promoting his new movie, An American Pickle, which involves Jewish life in the U.S. Marone raised the idea of Jews moving to many places in the world after the Holocaust and not to Israel. Okay, guys, I'm mentioning the Holocaust. I'm mentioning Jews. This video is not going to get promoted or shared by YouTube so please share these videos because the YouTube algorithm is against us. I just said the big H. I just said
You
it.
cannot say that.
You can say it, but YouTube, when you say it, YouTube is like, "Oh no, what the hell is this?" And then it doesn't. The only way the YouTube channels grows is when YouTube like shows your videos and recommend it, or features it, or play next. And when you say words like this, the algorithm detects it, and they're like,
Mhm.
"Okay, no, 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 we can't do this." So because they might think like we're saying something controversial. So this is one of
Okay.
the big this big H is one of the
Okay.
worst trigger. This triggers
Oh,
the
really?
algorithm. Yeah, it's really bad.
Oh, well, I take comfort in the fact that it's controversial. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, Marco is also on Twitch. Okay, cool. Guys, if you want me to read one of your comments, make sure you tag Atheist Republic. Soha is always reminding you guys to share this video and like and subscribe and hit the bell button. Thank you so much, Soha. Soha usually does this because she know I suck at doing this. But anyways, let's continue. So Rogan
yeah.
agreed. So 26 minutes in the podcast. This is the quote by Rogan. Rogan. He said, I think that's a better strategy. So the idea is, after the Holocaust, when the Jews wanted to pick a place to go, maybe they shouldn't have picked Israel. And Rogan is saying, this is the quote, I think that's a better strategy. You don't keep all your Jews in one basket. I don't understand why they did that. It makes no sense whatsoever. It would be nice to live somewhere that was not that was and not okay. This is grammatically not correct. That was not part of the Christian apocalyptic prophecy, and maybe settle somewhere that the Christians don't think you all have to die in order for
Yeah.
the apocalypse to happen. There's some
Well,
common There's some common vested interest in the meantime. Our ridiculous visions are temporarily parallel, allied with another. Right. Wait. So, okay. So this is where he said it's ridiculous. So far, what do you think?
Yeah, look, regarding the strategy of putting all the Jews, spreading the Jews in, not keeping them in one basket, I think Jews tried it for what, 18 centuries or so before the Zionist movement.
Can you bring your microphone a little bit higher?
Higher. Let's see if I can. Is this better?
I don't know. Yeah, continue.
Yeah. Is it louder, better? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Just speak louder.
Okay.
Go on.
So basically, the Jews tried doing, they were spread all over the place for about 18 centuries, and I'm counting from the failure of the first Great Rebellion against the Romans until the late 1800s. And it didn't work that well because periodically they were subjected to massacres and persecutions. So it didn't really work for them to be a scattered minority. That's at least that's the Zionist perception. And then the political Zionists came and said, nothing is working for us. We got to go back and become a nation on a land of its own. And
okay, so wait, there's two things happening here. You're responding to all the eggs in one basket. Like you're saying it makes sense to have them in one place because if they're minorities in different places, they already tried that. It didn't work. Everything sucked against them, right? But what about the second idea that maybe it shouldn't have been in Israel? Maybe they should have picked up a different land. My understanding is that the original Zionist movement was actually looking into multiple places, not just Israel. They were also looking into, I guess, where was it? Uganda and Argentina.
It was what is today. It was then Uganda. Now it's Western Kenya. At that time, it was Uganda.
Okay.
And they were looking
Argentina.
At Argentina, the Kimberleys in Western Australia. So I guess I'm fulfilling the part of their vision. But the thing is, most Zionists still thought about Israel as the place to come simply because, in terms of historical rights, if you view it that way, they felt they have more historical rights to go to that particular place. And of course, a lot of Jews had more sentiments to that place because that's where the nation came from.
But in hindsight, it doesn't seem like the best choice. Like I
don't think so. Okay, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I mean, sentiments, historical rights. Doesn't it seem like right at that time it might seem like a good idea, but in hindsight, wouldn't it be better to pick a place that would have resulted in less conflict, even if you don't get that sentimental feeling?
Which place would that be? I mean, every place the Jews would go to, unless it's Antarctica, would probably have some people there. So, which would be that place where they won't find anyone there?
Well, I mean, it's not like okay. Yeah, but there would be people there, but they might not be people that they have an entire religion dedicated to demonizing them.
Yeah, but I don't think. I mean, yes, Islam, I guess, was dedicated to. If you can, the thing like in all religions, you can cherry pick from Islam what you want. So I guess if you wanted to muster the masses against the Jews, very easy to do it using Islam. But if it wouldn't be Islam, it would be something else. I don't think.
By the way, do you mind using the other microphone because I think guys is the hold on. Let me just wait. Don't change it, guys. In the live chat, is Yuval's volume loud enough, or does he need to switch his microphone? Let me see if anybody agrees with me. Thinks, or is maybe it's just
I don't have another one.
No,
just have to
but maybe if you plug volume is okay. Never mind. It's just me. Okay. Let's read a little bit more of the article before we comment on it. So Maron, I think Maron was the host of the podcast. He asked Rogen, do you want to live in Israel? Rogen exclaimed, no. Maron says, I am the same way. Okay, by the way, just to be clear, both of these people, that the host and the guest, which is Rogen, they're Jews. They're Jews. Okay. Monero is saying, I'm the same way, and we're going to piss off a bunch of Jews. For some reason, my mother, who's not religious, her generation, they're kind of hung up on Israel, and they find some comfort in it. I've been there. I couldn't imagine living there. Oh, that's really sad. I've been to Israel. I'm not a Jew, but I would love to live in Israel.
Oh,
Rogen then says, okay, this here. Let's respond to this part by Rogen. Rogan says, no, there are nice parts. At best, you are convincing yourself that you are far enough away from major conflict to not worry about it, which is a terrible thing to convince yourself of. I don't understand. To
I don't
me,
understand what you're saying.
hold on, let me finish. Let me finish reading this. I don't understand. To me, it just seems very like an antiquated thought process. Like if it is for religious reasons, I don't agree with it because I think religion is silly. If it is truly for the preservation of Jewish people, it makes no sense because, again, you don't keep something you're trying to preserve all in one place, especially when that place has proven to be pretty violent, pretty volatile. Sorry, pretty
Volatile.
volatile. Yeah, okay. So this is Rogan quoting other people. So he's saying, I'm trying to keep all these things safe. I'm going to put them in my blender and hope that's the best place that will do it. So he's making fun of people who think that's a good idea. Then he continues, it doesn't make sense to me. And I also think that as a Jewish person, like I was fed a huge amount of lies about Israel my entire life. They never tell you that, oh, by the way, there were people there. They make it seem like it was just sitting there. Oh, the fucking door! The fucking doors open. All right. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, which part? So about the strategic, I'll start with the strategic part of not keeping all the Jews. I don't think about I don't think about preservation of the Jewish people. I think about preservation of Jewish individuals being persecuted because they're Jews. And I think in that sense, Israel was a very good. The idea of having a Jewish state was a very good idea. The idea of having a place where Jews are the majority group was a very good idea. And I do think that the fact that today the Jewish state is a moderate, medium-scale military power with a fearsome secret service, it does serve as a deterrent to many anti-Semites out there. And the fact that in the 1960s Israel managed to hunt down one of the major Nazis and bring him to trial, I think it does serve as a deterrent. Actually, we know it does because another the former commander of the commando of the SS, I forgot, Otto Skorzeny, he was so afraid of Israel that he was willing to turn coat and work as an agent for Mossad in the 60s because he was so scared of Israel putting him on the wanted list. So the fact that there is a strong Jewish state out there, that I think does serve as a deterrent to people who wish harm for the Jewish people as a whole. And
I'm not,
and and the fact that I mean, you see countries that had long anti-Semitic legacy trying to make friends with Israel, trying to have good relations with Israel. That's not a coincidence. That's it doesn't happen just like that out of the blue. It happens for a reason, and the reason is that now there is this Jewish entity out there that is considered as a strong entity in this world, and it makes certain people give more respect and to the Jews and being more cautious when they try to do something to them.
okay,
So
Smithy is saying Israel doesn't serve as protection to Jews anywhere but Israel. That's what.
I agree. I partly agree. I don't fully agree. I partly agree. I think Israel is active to a degree, helping fighting Nazis or anti-Semitic groups around the world. I don't think they always do it out in the open. Sometimes they do it in a clandestine way, but I think they do more than that. Hello, Al Aqsa. I'll
I
refer.
think
I'll refer to what he says in a minute.
I think Alexa is from. He's from Palestine.
It's from the West Bank. Yes, I
He's
don't
from the
remember
West Bank.
where. I think it's from Nablus, if my
This
memory
is so
serves me
cool.
right.
We have an
But-
Israeli Zionist on live with us, and one of our on Twitch we have a Palestinian. This is so beautiful. Okay, go on.
Not that we have a Palestinian. We have an atheist Palestinian whose name is El Aqsa Brigade, right? That's the nice thing. So he's atheist, but he calls himself El Aqsa Brigade. Anyway, going back to what I said, so I think for the Jews, it's very good that they have a strong country of which strength is being respected around the world. I think, and not only that, let's say that Israel can only protect Jews within Israel. One of the things that was in the thought process of creating a Jewish state was that if there will be a persecution or genocide against the Jews, they will not face all the doors in the world closing at their faces like happened in the Holocaust. There'll be this one place on earth that would always accept them, and that was Israel. And I have to apologize to El Aqsa. I'm sure he's making comments, but as I speak, I cannot read what he says.
Don't read them. No. I have to highlight them before they go all the way up. But you just keep finishing.
Yeah, but Armin, if you can keep track on them, because maybe you'd want me to comment on what El Aqsa says.
Okay. Finish your thoughts fast, because or else they're going to go all the way up, and it's going to be hard for me to.
That's about the strategic part. I think it was a good strategy. I think it was a successful strategy. Now let's go back to the place where apocalyptic Christians, why did they have to pick this spot of apocalyptic Christians that apocalyptic Christians are so interested in and hoping everyone's going to die there before they come back to Christ? So I think actually appealing to the biblical sentiment of Christians around the world tactically at the time was, I think, a very smart move. Apocalyptic Christians can hope for Armageddon all they want. At the end of the day, what counts is what the Jews do in their land. It's very hard. It would be very hard for an apocalyptic Christian somewhere in the Bible, but I don't know where, to try and push Israel into a war that the Israeli people is not interested in, because at the end of the day, the Israeli leaders, they're being elected by the Israeli people, not by the televangelist or whoever it is somewhere else. So I don't think it's that much of a problem. Of course, because religious people are not, when it comes to their religion, they're not being very rational. So they always think it's always part of a divine plan. So I guess those evangelists, they think it's part of a divine plan, and the Jews themselves don't understand that they're part of a divine plan. Fair enough, they can think whatever they want, as long as they keep support Israel. I'm happy with them supporting Israel. They can think it's part of the divine plan.
Let's move on to the part that he said that nobody told us. They didn't tell us people were already living there, and we just showed up and took their land.
Well, that's because he lives in the U.S. Maybe I grew up in Israel, and my grandfather was an officer during the War of 48. So I definitely got different information from Mr. Rogen. I have to say it is somewhat ironic that he doesn't want people to live in a land that was taken from other people, considering that he is living in a land that was taken from Native Americans. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure why he cares less for Native Americans than any other nation. But okay, that's
but that's whataboutism. Whataboutism. You're deflecting.
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not whataboutism. It's about a person making a claim that he himself doesn't follow, because if he has to be, it's not it's okay for us because they did to the Native Americans.
Okay, so it's wrong for both. So you're saying it's wrong for both?
I think it's wrong for both. I think the process that happened in Israel was different than happened in the United States, because up until the War of 48, look, when the Zionists came to Israel, their hopes was not to fight anyone. They said, we're going to come, we're going to buy the land, and we're going to get along with whoever is there. And not only that, they went in 1919, they went and signed an agreement with the leader of the Arab national. At that time, they were not divided to Palestinians and others. There was because they thought they're going to have a pan-Arabic state. So they went to Emir Faisal, who was the leader of the Arab National Movement, and they signed an agreement with him where he approves of the Jews coming to Palestine, building their national home. What happened was 1948, which was perceived in Israel by the Jews as a survival war. If I'll have more time, I can explain to you why.
But what about the absentee owners that the land was taken away from them? Let me clarify to people. Like, so so Israelis say, like, look, and this was a legal thing. We came up, we bought the land legally, and there was ours after. But then the counter argument is like, well, you took a lot of land because people
after the war,
because after the war, a lot of owners weren't there, and just because they weren't there, you took the land because they were
It was more than that, because even during the war, there were cases where they either they ran away and they just didn't let them come back, so obviously they became absentees, or there were cases where they were driven out. But so yeah, I'm not happy. I don't think that's I don't think the way Israel handled the absentee land was absolutely fair if you look at it today. But if I look
so you're saying it was unfair?
No. What I'm saying is, if you put away the context that the country emerged from a struggle of survival, and that the people that were the absentees were the people that were actually fighting it just 2 years ago, if you put that aside, you say, yeah, that's unfair. But that's not a parallel to what happened, let's say, in the United States with Native Americans, because what happens with the Native Americans was that they reached agreements of where the white people going to be, and every time the U.S. government breached this agreement, broke it, and then pushed them further away and further away. What happened in Israel was something different. You had the United Nations agreeing on a partition plan, and then the Arabs broke it, and then Israel was just fighting for its survival, because it was very clear that the Arab side is going to wipe out Israel completely. So of course, after this happens, you don't want those hundreds of thousands of people that just fought for your destruction to come back. That's a very reasonable decision to make. And since they're not back, but the land is there, the government might as well make use of this land.
All right.
This is the context. This is the context of the decision. But
I'm gonna finish the article, and then we're gonna go, guys. I think the order should be this. Let's finish the article, and then we go to our live chat. And guys, if I know I highlighted your questions, but if you want you all to respond to something specific, you need to repost their questions, okay? Because I'm not going to scroll all the way up. But let's go back and finish this article really fast, so because the live chat, I think, is going to have a couple of questions for you, okay? Maron was agreeing with Rogen. Is like, yeah, ours for the taking. Like, he thinks it was unfair. Rogen says, I'm going to finish it to the end so that we don't have to come back to the article after this, okay? Rogen says, yeah, literally, they forget to include the fact to every young Jewish person, basically, oh, by the way, there were people living there. Maron says, they want to make you feel frightened enough about your own survival that when you are old enough, you will make sure money goes to Israel, that trees and planets, what? And planets
are planted. I think what he says, trees. I can't read.
Okay, this is who edited this article. Are planted, that you always speak highly of Israel, and Israel must survive no matter what. Rogen then says, I don't understand it at all. I think for Jewish people, especially who view themselves as progressive and who view themselves as analytical and who view themselves as people who ask a lot of questions and really challenge the status quo, like, what are we doing? Maron says, I guess... Oh, Maron, I get frightened to talk about it. See, this should be a colon, not a dot. Maron says, I get frightened to talk about it, and we're afraid of Jews. Rogen then says, we're almost done. Rogen says, I know, I'm afraid of Jews. I'm 100% afraid of Jews. That's it. Aside from James Can, we have no one to be afraid of. It's scary, but we're Jews. We can say whatever. Oh, it's scary, but we're Jews. We can say whatever we want. If anyone could say whatever the fuck they want about this shit, it should be two famous Jewish people. If
I think they're trying
anyone's
to be funny there.
hold on. Yeah, I know. They're making fun. If anyone's getting rounded up first, it's our fucking asses. We are outwardly Jewish, and so I think Rogen says his parents met in Israel on kibbutz. By the way, on a kibbutz. Yeah. So that's a community thing, like right? Like
that's
so,
a
yeah.
communal way of an agricultural communal form of settlement.
All right.
Yeah.
So you react to that, and guys, give me your questions for Yuval.
Yeah, I don't.
Lecture.
You know, the last paragraph you are they're just trying to be funny. So I don't know much.
Okay.
I can't comment intelligently about that.
Yeah. But it was kind of funny, to be fair.
But now the thing is, and you've been to Israel. There are about 1 million.
Yes.
There are about 1 million Arabic-speaking citizens, Israeli citizens. So obviously, if you grew up in Israel, no one will tell you there was no one here, because you get to meet their descendants every day. And Arabic is one of the two most used language in Israel, even in formal use. When you were in Israel, I'm sure you saw all the street signs and the road signs were also written in Arabic. So obviously, Jews living in Israel are fully aware that there were Arabs there. The fact that Seth Rogen was not aware, I guess it says a lot about the education that he got, but I cannot comment on that because because I didn't grow up in the United States, so I don't know what they teach them there.
Okay, let's read this comment by
an ethnically Jewish person, yes, has never been to Israel, can obtain Israeli citizenship. That's correct. Whereas a Palestinian refugee born in Israel who has been pushed out to Jordan as a refugee does not have the right to return. That's also correct. Except, I mean, there are a few exceptions, but as a rule, Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigades is correct in what he says. Indeed, those Arabs that fled the country in 1948, most of them, or as a rule, were not allowed to come back. There are some exceptions, but as a rule, the government didn't want them to come back, didn't let them to come back. Obviously, they were perceived. Again, the country was emerging from a struggle to survive. It's a very reasonable decision not to let hundreds of thousands of people that were just a year ago fighting to destroy you to come back within your own borders if you want to survive. So what's your choice? Not survive and being considered as moral, or
what about now though? Now it seems like a good time to let them come back.
No, I don't think so. First of all, because as far, I mean, I think the solution would be to give a state, part of the country, to become a Palestinian state, but not to let them into the board as a Zionist. I don't want that area of Israel. I don't care how small it. I mean, I care to a degree, but I don't mind Israel being smaller than it is now, as long as it maintains its Jewish majority. Because the whole point for me as a Zionist, the whole point is that there will be one country in the world with the Jewish majority.
Right.
So by the way, I don't care if Israel shrinks in order to maintain this. Yeah.
By the way, you can see Marco is a member, right? So I'm going to make sure I highlight our members' comments, so you could also become a member. I'm going to make that feature available on Twitch soon as well. But Marco is saying, I'm going to go back to Al-Aqsa's comment real quickly. But Marco is saying, not taking sides, but one thing I understand, if once you are betrayed by basically the entire world and suffer 6 million casualties, you have a huge interest of having your country. That makes
I mean
sense.
that's.
But here's one thing. Al-Aqsa was saying their land was forcibly. Oh wait, no, there was a good comment here. Oh, here, this one. He's saying not all of the refugees fought against Israel.
That's correct. That's correct. The thing is that by the way, not all and I would add, but I had to tell Al-Aqsa, not all of the refugees were also chased away by Israel, because some of them moved away either because they were afraid on their own accord, or because they were.
So why not the ones that didn't fight, the ones that weren't fighting? Why can't they come back?
Because if Israel will now let all those that went away and their descendants to come back, it would lose the Jewish majority, and it will be the end of Israel.
Okay, good. It's like not the end of Israel. Sorry, I didn't mean.
It would be the end of Israel.
Israel will remain, but not as a Jewish state.
Yeah,
What's wrong with
that's
that?
right. What's wrong with? Well, it depends what's your point of view. If you think Jews should have one place in the world where they are the majority, obviously you think it's a bad thing. If you don't believe that,
So you
then
are
obviously
arguing, you're saying it's good, like it makes sense to have an ethno state. You're arguing for an ethno state.
in the case, if you can call it, I call it a nation state. You can call it an ethno state. I call it a
Well, a
nation state.
nation state that is based on ethnicity is an ethno state.
You, we both, it's the same. We use different terms for the same thing. It's a nation state in the same way that Polish is the nation state of the Polish people.
No,
And
no, it's not the
yes,
same.
yes, absolutely.
No, it's not the same. It's a different. Okay, it's wait. When it comes to new citizens, does Poland have a bias over Polish people?
I don't know. I don't know about
Okay.
Poland, but I think Ireland. I don't know about Poland specifically, but I think, for example, Ireland has a
Right.
bias towards people of Irish descent. Germany, I think, has a bias towards people of German descent. There are certain countries where they do have an ethnic bias.
Descent by people who were there already. Well, therefore, Israel should do both Jewish and Arab or Palestinian descent. It should do both because they were there too.
Yeah, but we're talking about the nation state. So if you talk about Poland, not Poland, Irish, they would make sure that your name is O'Brien or O'Connor, etc. And you have to
let's
show,
just be clear though, a state that just by the accident of geography and organically became majority based on one ethnicity, right, is different from a country that is demographically engineering an ethnicity. Do you know what I mean? Like Japan being mostly Japanese people because of because of geographical geographically those people being there and that organically happening, nobody designing it in a way so that Japanese are there, is different from let's make this place like it's closer to what's happening in Kashmir, I think, more than Japan or Poland.
I'm not familiar enough with the Kashmir case, but I guess Israel is indeed a unique place because Jews were scattered outside of the country for so many centuries. Obviously Israel is a different case, but it is when you talk about Zionism, the whole point of Zionism is to have this spot of land where Jews will be the majority. Once you lose that, then you maybe some people think it's a good thing, but I think that considering the history of minorities in the world generally and the Jews specifically, it would be a very bad thing. So I under no circumstances do I want to consider Jews becoming a landless minority again in the world. So
But here's the thing though. I think an ethno state for Jews made sense in the environment after or closely before World War II. Okay, but it doesn't make sense now anymore. As long as Israel can still remain a home for the Jews wherever they are, it doesn't need to remain a Jewish state. Okay, so for example, if a specific ethnicity is being so heavily targeted, like the Kurds or what the Jews were experiencing during World War II and shortly before it, that will justify creating a place where and especially if there's very little places where they're welcome, like the Jews were being attacked almost everywhere, right? That kind of situation will justify creating an ethno state, okay? But the Jews are still an oppressed minority right now, but it's not at all like it was back then. Okay?
And I argue that there is a reason that it's not like before, and the reason is that right now there is a force to be reckoned with in the world. So, and that is one of the reasons that the Jews are not.
No, I don't think. I think you're exaggerating that a bit.
Well, I think
the effect Israel has today, the positive effect Israel has for Jews around the world, is that there's a play. If things get really bad in a place, they could immediately go to Israel, right? But I don't think that Israel like is having that influence. Maybe that makes people like think twice before being anti-Semitic. I don't think. I think you're
I
exaggerating that.
disagree.
Okay,
I have
okay. But
I have
I
to
think
disagree. I can
Israel.
bring you examples if
I think
you want. But
Israel could serve the purpose of being a home for Jews today without being an ethno state.
I disagree.
In fact, in the spirit of what Israel was originally for, Israel could be like, you know what? We are now a home for the oppressed, no matter their ethnicity. If you're a Muslim if you're a Sunni Muslim in Iran and you're being oppressed because it's majority Shia, Israel is your home. If you're a Muslim from China and you're being oppressed, because in the spirit of the foundation of this country that was a home for the oppressed, Israel would be your home.
Yeah,
If
you obviously got the spirit wrong, because the spirit was very particular. But I disagree. I think there is no guarantee once Israel ceases to be a country with a Jewish majority, there is no guarantee that it's going to remain the refuge for Jews. That's the main problem.
But
If there was,
that's okay. But that
if
is
there was a
something.
guarantee, for that, then you wouldn't need Israel. You wouldn't need the Zionist movement to begin with. But because there was no guarantee for that, you had to have this country with a Jewish majority.
But
I don't like, just so you'll
it,
understand.
okay.
I'm not happy with the idea that a nation, in this case the Jewish nation, needs a nation state. I don't think it's a good. I don't think it tells us something good about the world. I don't think it's good news. It's unfortunate news, but it is the way of the world. If you want to be safe in this world as a group, as a member of a national group, you need to have your nation state. It's
Wait,
not a happy fact, but it is a fact.
Do you think there needs to be a nation state for every oppressed minority, or just Israel?
I think so. I think that would be a good solution, and I can't think of. Well, if it's practical, if it's like, if you can find a place, if they can manage it the way the Zionists managed to eventually carve their own corner in the world, yes,
right.
I think I can't think of. I mean, there are probably a lot of oppressed minorities in the world, so I can't think of all of them right now as we speak. But as a rule, yes, I think it would be a good idea to have an independent Kurdistan and Balochistan and other, Tibet.
Okay, so here's one question before I go to British Pakistani atheist question. I want to ask, given that if you think that Israel eventually, if Israel turns into not a Jewish state, that would be a disaster, right? Well, I can tell you.
I think on a historical scale, what we learn from history is that there could be a point in history where Jews there also will be persecuted, just like other countries were safe for Jews and then they were not safe for Jews.
Okay, let me finish my question. Right.
Yeah, go for it.
But the thing is that to me it seems like this is something inevitable. I can never say that it's gonna happen. I never can say inevitable.
Yes.
Okay, tongue twister for me. But it will happen because of demographics. Like the status quo in Israel cannot remain forever, and there's more Arabs, right, than Jews. The two-state solution seems less and less likely every year. Some people were saying it's already over many years ago, but you, I think, disagree. But even if you disagree that it's still a possibility, seems very unlikely, right? So, as so many people have said, Israel has to choose between being a Jewish state or a democratic state. It can't have both. And at some point, something is going to happen, and all the Arabs are going to be not just the Arab citizens of Israel, but West Bank and Gaza and all of that. Eventually, I think the status quo cannot maintain itself, and they're going to become Israeli. Okay, one way or another. So your precious Jewish state, at some point, is not going to remain Jewish anymore. And given that it's not going to remain Jewish anymore, it would be a good idea to make it at least seem like it was planned rather than forced, because I think the thing that you're afraid of would be more more likely to happen if if the Israel loses its Jewish status by force rather than by democratic processes. If it happens, if it happens through democratic processes, there's a chance for this happening peacefully. You think it's
I think that you're very naive in that sense, because
okay.
Lebanon was formed by agreement, and it didn't save.
I'm not saying it's going to be peaceful, but I'm saying it will happen either democratically or it will be forced. Like you can't fight them.
No. But Lebanon, with all its so-called democratic process that it went through to become a multi-religious state in Lebanon, it's more about religion. It didn't save them from the horrible civil wars that they went through there and the massacres. So I don't think that whether it will go through war or whether it will go through the vote, it doesn't matter. I think it's very bad news either way if Israel insists on going in the course that it's going right now towards indeed stop being. I think it won't be a Jewish state anyway, because if the majority is not Jewish, it doesn't matter if they can vote or not. The state is not Jewish. It's just that.
So so I agree with you.
Not Jewish and not democratic. But if Israel will persist going in the course it's going right now, I can only say with great sadness that indeed Israel is jeopardizing the Zionist project. There is no.
So Israel, given this trend,
I think the current Israeli policies jeopardize the Zionist project. That's the way I feel about it, because they cannot perceive they're not going towards a solution that will ensure a solid Jewish majority in the country, and obviously the country being democratic.
Oh, by the way, we need to clarify something with our audience. You're a Zionist, but you're against the settlements, right?
I'm against Israel controlling most of the West Bank. I think Israel should withdraw from almost all of the West Bank, and I think personally it should do it unilaterally. It shouldn't wait for an agreement. That's my personal
because
view.
a lot of people assume that if you're a Zionist, you must be in favor of all the settlements, but you're
no.
Like, when I was in Israel, I met a lot of Zionists that were not in favor of the settlements.
I think the settlements are in their essence anti-Zionist. That's how I feel about it.
Right.
But
let me actually read some more comments before we because we're losing. Okay,
I'm especially happy to answer the Palestinian participants if they want to, because
okay. We have a Pakistani one here, and then we go to the Palestinian one. If the UK decided to turn against its minorities today, I, as an atheist of Pakistani descent, would have nowhere to call my home. Should I take over a piece of land and call it a nation for ex-Muslims of Pakistani descent? Well, can you just call it for ex-Muslims? Because I want to come to your nation. But so he's saying, like, you can't just take someone else's land, but just because you don't have a place to call home.
So I wanna comment about taking someone else's land and all that.
What?
Yeah, okay. I'd like to
you just reply to that. I need to, and I'm just highlighting that.
Okay. So I want to comment about taking someone else's land, and again, I have to go back to the history of the Zionist movement and how
do it quickly because we need to.
So first of all, all the land before 1948 was bought, and the Zionist movement also reached an agreement with the leader of the Arab National Movement, and the UN agreed on partitioning the land. Later on, because there was a war of extermination, and the reason I'm using the war of extermination is because the General Secretary of the Arab League declared it to be a war of extermination against the Jews, then they fought against those who declared the war of extermination against them. So obviously, if you want to survive, you try to push those who try to kill you as much as you can, and you don't always have the time when you're moving with the troops to start sorting them out and see who doesn't want to kill you and who doesn't. So it's not the case of colonialists coming to the North America and starting grabbing land from peaceful people sitting there and minding their own business. It's not the same story.
Okay.
So
right.
so I have to resent this concept of, oh, they came and they grabbed another person's land. No, they came and they bought legally the land until the other side started fighting them with guns. Instead of all they had to do is stop selling them land, but they didn't do that. They just started killing them. So obviously they had to fight them back.
Okay, so you wanted Palestinian comments. I got you a Palestinian comment here.
Yes, this is exactly how so-called race realist ethno-nationalists justify the ethnically white Europe. I don't think this is exactly how they do it, but if you want to, I'm not that familiar. I'm not sure who you're talking about exactly. So it's hard for me to comment about that specifically.
So
if you bring a statement, if you want to bring a particular statement and then say why it's like the statements that I'm making, then I'd be happy to comment on that one.
So white nationalists think like Europe should be for white people. Other ethnicities should go back to their home, and everybody's better off if different ethnicities would get along better if they lived separately.
I don't necessarily agree. I personally grew up, my village was between three Arab villages in Israel, and generally speaking, we got along quite fine. So I don't think such separation is necessary. I also suspect, I actually not suspect, I can tell you for a fact, that when Trump now suggested that few Israeli Arab villages will become part of the future Palestinian state, those guys went and started demonstrating against it. Said, no, we don't want to become part of the future Palestinian state. Our Israeli Arabs were demonstrating against becoming part of the Palestinian state. Whilst doing so, they were holding Palestinian flags, which was very ironic. So they went protesting against the idea of them becoming part of a Palestinian state, and at the same time held the flag of the state they don't want to become a part of. But it just shows you that obviously Israeli Arabs are not suffering as much as you would imagine in this Jewish ethno-state. They enjoy to such a degree they'd rather live there than become part of a Palestinian state. So I think different ethnicities can get along. Poland is very Polish, and it still has a Ukrainian minority and the other minorities. The Czech Republic has some minorities. I can think of more than one nation state that still has minorities, and people get along. It's not a necessity for ethnicities to completely segregate from each other.
Okay, Mike is saying I shouldn't be interrupting you and speaking over you, but honestly, like we can't go over. I need to do that because, or else if we go over an hour, nobody's gonna watch this. Okay?
No, he just wants to listen to me more than he wants to listen to you. That's all.
Obviously, but let's do two more, both of them by Alexa, because I think this is fun between our Israeli atheists and a Palestinian atheist. So this is good. So
yeah. So I can read and then respond. Okay. Yeah, the civil war in Lebanon happened because of the large number of Palestinian refugees that were sent there, which completely destabilized and changed the demographic of the country. The hypocrisy is madness here. I'll have to correct you on that one, Al-Aqsa. The civil war in Lebanon, there were more than one civil war in Lebanon. The first one was that I can recall of was around the 50s, and it was mainly between Druze. There were Druze fighting Christians, amongst other fights that went along there, and it didn't have to do much with the Palestinians. That you admit that the Palestinians were a destabilizing factor in the Lebanese politics is a refreshing novelty, and I can only compliment you for that. But I think they were destabilizing a situation which was also already volatile, and the Palestinian leadership simply understood that because of this volatile situation, they can serve as a power broker and start shifting sides. Another reason that Lebanon was destabilized was simply because Syria always considered Lebanon as part of Greater Syria, and they always made sure that the weaker part will become stronger. And once it gets too strong, then they shift their support to the other side just to make sure that Lebanon would never stabilize, and this would justify the Syrian presence. So I don't think Palestinian refugee problem was the main issue. I would also have to comment that the reason there were so many Palestinians in Lebanon, Palestinian organizations in Lebanon, was because before they were there, before 1970, those organizations were in Jordan, and they tried to destabilize Jordan. So, yeah.
Two more.
Sorry,
Two more. The two. I said two more, but I'm going to say two more again. One by Smitty is regarding to. Okay, yeah. Read those comments. This is in reference when I ask you if you're in support of the settlements, and you responded, and you said they need to leave. Smitty is asking which parts of Palestinian land should they not stop illegally
occupying. Okay, if Smithy wants to go to the dry letter of the law, I'm not sure he's going to be happy with the result, because for a land to be illegally occupied, it should be taken from a sovereign party, from a legal sovereign. Now, it just so happened that all the land that Israel took was never taken from a legal sovereign, and the reason is that the Palestinians in 1947 or 48 never bothered declaring themselves as a state. So every land that Israel took, Israel can come legally. If you want, I don't think it's the right way of doing it, but if you want to talk about legal, Israel can always come and say, guys, for this to be occupied, we had to take it from a legal sovereign. There was no legal sovereign to this land when we took it. So I would urge you, I would give you an advice not to start talking about international law, because you're not on very solid ground in that particular respect. Right. Now, as for the part of the country that I think Israel should take, I think maybe 5% of the West Bank. I don't have the map in front of me. The main bulks of settlements are actually on very small part of the West Bank. And other than that, they should give all the West Bank and maybe certain parts in the Jordan Valley. Other than that, all the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, as far as I'm concerned, can become Palestinian states. And all the Arabs living within the Israel that will remain should become Israeli citizens.
Okay, last one by our very own moderator, Suha.
Suha Barakat.
Suha Barakat. Do you want to read that?
Okay. Palestinians who fled to Jordan didn't actually flee. They were tricked. That's why when they left their stuff, and the people who have actually did manage to return.
Okay, the second part is not here yet, so I don't know what the second part is.
Okay, so let's read the second part. So
I don't have the second part. It's just the first
we don't
part.
have the second part. Okay. So they were tricked, so they didn't flee. They left because I guess they were manipulated.
No, just respond to that. So she's saying they were manipulated.
So whether so if whether they were manipulated or chased away or fled, I don't think that's the main issue, because the main issue is that once even if they fled later on, they didn't let them come back. So that's I guess that's the core of the problem, right? It doesn't matter if you leave your house because they chase you away, or if you leave temporarily and you come back after a year. You still have a claim for your property, I guess. So I guess I addressed it either way, whether they fled or they didn't flee. I addressed Israel's consideration in why it forms its policies in its first years in such a way. Now, about the Palestinian refugees, the problem specifically with the refugee problem, with the Palestinian refugee issue, is that unlike any other refugee situation in the world, is the Palestinian status of a Palestinian refugee is inherited. That is, even if your parents are Palestinian refugees and you were born in Canada, you're still a Palestinian refugee, and your grandchildren will be Palestinian refugees, and your great-grandchildren. So you can be a third-generation born Palestinian in Lebanon, but unlike any other refugee situation in the world, you would still be considered a refugee. If you were a Tibetan living in Lebanon, let's say yesterday you fled Tibet, and your parents fled Tibet, and you were born in Lebanon, you are not a Tibetan refugee according to the United Nations definition. It's only Palestinians that remain refugees for generations, which makes it harder, because it's like you have more and more and more refugees in the world, and now you expect Israel to take them back.
Okay, I keep saying last comment, but But I'm gonna do the last one by. Hold on, I'm just gonna highlight this, but let's not respond to this because I want to respond to the Smithy one as well.
Yeah, Al-Aqsa makes a good point. You can be 25th generation Jew who's never been in Israel and get Israeli citizenship. Al-Aqsa, that's absolutely correct, and that is because Israel was formed to solve the problem of Jews wherever they are, because Jews were persecuted wherever they are as such, even if they were 20 generations out of the country. Hadn't we had this problem to begin with, then you wouldn't have a need for in Israel.
All right, so this is the last thing, guys. If I don't read anything after this, please don't be angry with me, okay? I'm just going to read Smithy's talking about the legality of it. There's 4 comments. I'm just going to go through it really fast. Smithy is saying, since the occupation of the West Bank in 1967, numerous United Nations resolutions, including 446, 452, 465, 471, and 476 affirm unambiguously. Hold on, let me finish. Let me finish. That Israel's occupation is illegal.
Wait, hold on.
And
no,
since
I have
resolution.
To. Okay.
Okay, well, let me finish them. And since the resolution 446 adopted on 22nd of March 1979 have confirmed that its settlements there have no legal validity and pose a serious obstacle to peace, United Nations Security Council Resolution 2334 of 2016 states that Israel's settlement activity constitutes flagrant violations of international law and has no legal validity. It demands that Israel stop such activity and fulfill its obligations as an occupying power under the 4th Geneva Convention.
I'm going to find
That's the last thing that we're going to highlight. Just, I might highlight
so
more.
I'm going. So also, first of all,
last thing we respond to. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, in response to Smithy, I will quote Abba Ibn, an Israeli foreign minister, and he said, if Algeria introduced a resolution declaring that the earth is flat and that Israel had flattened it, it would pass by a vote of 164 to 13 with 26 abstentions. So what he's trying to, you want me to repeat that? If Algeria introduced a motion that the earth is flat and Israel has flattened it, it would pass in the UN by a vote of 164 to 13 with 26 abstentions. And what he meant to say by that is that the UN resolutions are political. It's not like the UN is not a legal entity. UN is not a judiciary. UN is an assembly of countries with their geopolitical interests.
How do we come with international law then if it's not through the UN?
No, the international law is not determined by a vote in the UN.
Geneva?
Okay, you can look at the Geneva Convention, and the Geneva Convention, I think the 4th version of it, I can't remember for sure, tells you that for an area to be considered occupied, they define an occupied territory when it's taken from a legitimate sovereign. And as I said before, in terms of international law, there was no legitimate sovereign to those lands when Israel took it, because Israel took the West Bank from Jordan, which was not the legitimate sovereign. And at that time, no Palestinian state was declared. So there was no. So again, I'm fully for Israel withdrawing from the West Bank, but if you're going to waive the law against it, you have a weak case. You're not standing. You're not standing on solid grounds. I would agree with you that Israel should withdraw from most of the West Bank, but waiving the international law is not your best argument for it. I think there are other arguments for it, not the international law.
Okay, let's end it here though. But I think this was more fun than this was fun, wasn't it? Like I think we.
It's a shame. I think we have more. I think Suha made some comments and Al-Aqsa made some more comments. I'm happy to stay and entertain their comments if you want me to. I don't know how much time.
No, if this gets, trust me, I'm trying to keep them under an hour, or else nobody is going to watch these videos. Okay.
Okay.
It technically needs to be under half an hour, but I can never keep it under half an hour.
Okay.
But I think I did a good job at making sure both sides got their chance by not talking much myself.
So my personal apologies to Al-Aqsa and Suha, because I would have loved to address more of the.
But you will come back again, right?
If audience demands it, no, I'm
no.
And
maybe at some point, maybe we could have like a Palestinian atheist on, like speaking on
Yeah,
StreamYard, like that would be.
I would be happy to do that, provided that it won't take the form of a debate where one side is trying to own the other side, but
Oh,
more form of a discussion trying to generate insights. Because otherwise, it takes, if the course is to try and own the other side,
Okay,
it
okay.
takes
How
a
about
very
this? How about
juvenile.
this? I'll try to bring some Palestinian atheists on, and I'll talk to them. And then if you could see them being on Atheist Republic, and they could watch you being on Atheist Republic, and if you guys like each other, then we'll set up something. Oh.
I'd be happy. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'd be happy to talk to them.
Okay.
I just don't want it. I just don't want it to become one side is owning the other, and people in the chat are cheering for
Man,
one side or the other, because it's not.
why not? That's fun. I'm just kidding.
No, it's
All
very
right.
juvenile. It's not. It's. I don't find it productive.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna thank our members. We have 3 members. This is amazing. P is our member. Marco
3
is our
members.
member.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
Darko
thank you,
is also
Mr.
our
Critique.
member.
It's very kind of you. Mr. Critique enjoyed the stream.
Yeah, Marco. Yes, Marco. His name is Marco.
Martin.
But if you want to be a member, I'm gonna make member only videos. I'm gonna make videos that is only available to our patrons or our members. So right next to the subscribe button, now you see a join button, and you could be a member. Isn't that awesome? So great, and that will help support the show. There are other things you could do as well to support the show.
I'm still in suspense to hear the other half of Sua's comment, though. I have to tell you, she made we read half her comment.
We just got half of it.
We don't know the remaining part of it, unfortunately. So I'm sorry,
okay.
Suha. I'm really curious now.
No, but okay. But it's been about an hour already. And P is mentioning P is telling everybody to like and subscribe. And if you're not subscribed, this is a mystery for me. You watch 1 hour of our video and you're
especially
not subscribed.
My videos.
Yeah,
especially like the videos.
If you see we have engaging content, come on, goddammit, subscribe. And also follow us on Twitch. Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Oh, don't go anywhere.